Welcome back, my friends. We're here with another video on how to make your race car better. So I alluded to it in my first video, the G-body video. I guess it was 2 videos back. You can find it on my channel. I started with cleaning your race car. Cleaning your car isn't going to give it more drive off. It isn't going to make it turn better. But cleaning your car is the first step to doing what it takes to get better. Making yourself better and your race car better at the same time. A lot of guys leave their race cars dirty. They don't care about cleaning it because, what does cleaning it make it go faster? But really, it's the effort. If somebody's not going to put in the time to clean their car, is the caster correct? Are the ride heights correct? Is the bump steer correct? If you're not cleaning your race car and you're too lazy to go that extra, put those extra 4 or 5 hours in a week to clean it, what makes you think that you're going to have the drive to continually progress? If you're looking to do the bare minimum, as far as cleaning it, you're going to do the bare minimum all the way down the road. It's that effort that makes winners. It's the effort that builds champions. And if you can't put forth the effort to clean your race car and to show your race car the respect that it deserves, it's not going to take care of you in return. I see racers all the time putting new rubber on their cars, but they don't even waste the time to clean out a wheel. This is how long it takes to clean out a wheel. This is not fast forwarded. This is literally how long it takes to clean out a wheel. The nice thing about cleaning wheels out also is if a clean wheel shows brake dust. A dirty wheel won't show the amount of brake dust. So you can see how much brakes you're using in relation to the amount of dust inside of a wheel. But that's all the longer it takes to clean out a wheel. Yeah, it may not make that big of a difference, but when it looks good, you go that little bit extra. Like I say, maximum effort, maximum return. Minimal effort, minimal return. A little bit of elbow grease, 30 seconds, that wheel's clean. Can't clean a race car too much. Put the effort into it, and the race car will reward you with it. When you're cleaning along, keep an eye on things like your clips on your ball joints or your steering arms. Keep an eye on everything. Look at your motor mounts. Bolt check it. Bolt check is another thing that I think it's forgotten a lot about on these race cars. These things do vibrate a lot. They do rattle, and bolts come loose. Bolt check that stuff. While you're cleaning it, grab a couple wrenches and, that looks loose, and tighten it up. Just go over it. You can't go over these cars too much. The more work you put into it, the more they're going to reward you. Now, I don't expect you guys to have race cars that you can eat off of, but by not cleaning your race car, by not looking over every little part of this thing, you're doing yourself a huge injustice. You're spending thousands a year on tires, gas, pit passes, all of this stuff. Give yourself the best chance that you can and take care of your race car. Maintenance your race car. It's like, your relationship with your girlfriend or your wife. The more effort you put in, the more return you're going to get out of it. Love is spelt Time. Love your race car. It'll love you back. All right, now that I've ranted enough about cleaning your race car, I'm going to go over a couple of things that might help you make your life a little bit easier. These here are travel indicators, and basically what I did was I welded a piece of 1/2-inch round tubing. I used this 3/8 plastic rod. I've got this adjuster on it so I can lower it or raise it. And what I'm doing is I'm allowing my car to show me where it's sitting on the racetrack. I want to travel this thing as close to the crossmember without piling the crossmember into the racing surface as I can. I wanted to get right up in there. And right now I'm about a 1/2 inch short of getting to the crossmember, which is just about perfect. I see a lot of racers that run under dump exhaust that dumps underneath their race car. I strongly encourage my racers to run the exhaust out the right side, and this is for a couple reasons. One is it reduces the sound level inside of the race car. It makes it quite a bit quieter. I've ran my super late model underneath for years, and then when I started running it out the side, I was able to hear my spotter far better just because the sound was a lot lower after getting it outside of the car. Two, if you're running the exhaust underneath the car, usually it dumps back here somewhere in front of the rear end. That just builds more heat up underneath here and ultimately maybe on the right rear tire, and it cooks that right rear. By running it out the right side of the car, it's got enough speed coming out that it kind of blows around the tire and it's not hurting that tire. Some engines that run, they have them running really, really rich, or a lot of cam overlap that they blow a flame out. Even the flame kind of comes out, and it's pretty short, but it's directed past the tire, so it's not really going to affect it. Another thing is, like when you'll see with the Cup cars or the trucks or the Nationwide, they run it out at an angle out of the right side because it creates thrust. It actually does create thrust. So like when you rev it up, you can kind of feel that pressure push out. It allows you to run the car just a little bit freer, but yet maintain stability in the car because that thrust does tighten the car. It does act like the car tightens up a little bit. So run it out the right side. It's safer, it's quieter, and it is more performance. If you're building a new car, a couple things that I would strongly encourage is, one, install jack posts in it. What'll happen is if you don't have a jack post, your crew guys will try to jack up on this pinch weld or on this rocker, and this thing will wind up getting crushed way in, and it just looks terrible. Adding a jack post, not only is it cleaner for jacking up on, but two, when the jack cup sits up in there, it'll hook on that bolt and it won't slide off the jack. I've seen these cars fall off the jack several times because as they're jacking it up, the jack tries to roll and pull and it will slide off that rail and crush the door or whatever. This is just safer, cleaner, and ultimately just a lot nicer. One thing I do often is I pull the springs out of my cars and I travel the suspension. When I say travel, that means I go all the way up, all the way down, and I make sure there's no binds. If you take a whack on a wheel, it's really, really easy to bend an upper cross shaft, a ball joint or something, and put the suspension in a bind. So I constantly check that, especially if we have tire contact. So the best way to do this, and I'll show you on our Super Late model over here, you can see I've got the strut arm or the strut out of it, the shocks off of it. The best way to do that is just lift up on it. If you can move it by hand up and down, you know that it doesn't have any bind in it. It's free moving and it's going to retain the lowest amount of wheel rate. Wheel rate is basically bind in the suspension. The easier it moves, the better it's going to perform on track. Another question I get often is, how do I correctly set up my string on the right side? The best way that I've found to do this is measure between your frame rails. This one here is 37 inches. You divide that by 2 and it gives you your center point. Go to the back, measure between the rear rails. This is 38. Now obviously that's higher than 37, but the center of that gives you your center line. So you can measure from this rail out to your string and the front rail out to your string, do the math, and it will give you a perfect alignment for your string down the right side. While you're working on your race car, write everything down. It's really easy just to jot down notes on something. If you change something or if you make an adjustment, write that stuff down. Your travels, if your shock has an indicator, a travel indicator, record those numbers. It's easy to look back on that stuff and see where gains are made, or if you get yourself backed into a corner and your car's not right, you can go back to your notes and make those adjustments to get back to where you want to be. I have a notebook for every single car that I've got. They've always got their own notebooks just because I don't want to mix that information up, the wrong car, wrong information. These cars are like snowflakes. Each car likes a little bit something different. Every driver likes a little bit something different. So by keeping those notes, it's always positive and it's more beneficial just to be able to look back and get yourself right when you need it. I love pretty race cars. And one of the best ways to make these hobby stock type cars or these stock body type cars pretty is by having awesome wheel wells. The way I built these wheel wells is I took a steel trailer fender from the farm store here in town. It's just a trailer tire fender. I cut the rib off of it and I welded it into this fender. Inside of that, you can see where I had made cuts. I welded in that fender, and it just gives me a really, really stiff support on the edge of that fender. It's got a beautiful roll on it, and it just has a great shape. Aerodynamics may not play a huge part in short track racing, but you know what? Sexy race cars, they're chick magnets, man. Another positive to having stout, tight wheel wells is that they shield the tires. I've had some damage here where you can see that it never got to the tire because I've got this fender built up as a shield. They're pretty strong. You do have to be careful because if you ram something with it, it may fold in and get on the tire. But ultimately, it looks good. It's strong. It's got a lot of support. And, chicks dig it. Most shocks come equipped with a travel indicator, and if it doesn't have it, a zip tie that's tightened way down suffices as a great little travel indicator. After a run, I always come through and measure these travels, and it helps me later on down the road if I'm setting up for a track, and I want to get more travel on the front, but I had this spring. I can do some calculations to tell me what I can run to get the front end where it needs to be. Or I could see if, maybe we're over traveling in the back. Having travel indicators are just a positive way to always know that my stuff's right. You'll often hear me use the term travel when I'm talking about suspension, and I don't mean traveling to like the racetrack, like, oh, I'm running at Wenatchee, it's 2 hours away, we got to travel to it. That's not what I'm referring to. Travel is the amount of suspension movement. So, and you can measure that at the shock. So when the suspension goes in and then it comes back out, you can measure that travel and know how much of that corner of the car is actually moving. By referring to travel and saying measuring travel, I'm talking about measuring the distance at which from its static position where it's sitting on the ground to its dynamic position on the track. That's the maximum amount of travel. Recording those numbers is going to help you down the road, with choosing spring rates and making your car better. And recording the difference in those travels tells you how much you made gains on that. So say you want to travel the front to within a half inch of the cross member, and with this spring you got, X amount of travel, so you can lower it this much more and still maintain, your target travel. It's far more beneficial than just guessing. Proper preparation prevents piss poor performance. Working on your race car, having your race car right, will keep you from sucking. Second, good enough just isn't. If you want your toe to be at 1/8 of an inch and you're setting it and you get to 1/4 inch and you go, it's good enough, that's not 1/8 inch, that's 1/4 inch. Go that extra mile and make it right, make it perfect. You will find more speed by being perfect than you will being good enough.